This is Dr. Dewey Smith of Atlanta, Georgia, and you're watching Gospel Goodies TV.
Gospel goodies.
Gospel goodies. Gospel goodies.
This is Gospel Goodies.
Good Sunday evening. It's Gospel Goodies Radio on Philly's favorite 100.7 FM and 99.5 HD3, home of the Yolanda Adams Morning Show. I'm Aaliyah Faust, and I'm excited to be joined by pastor and author Dewey Smith. He's pastor of House of Hope in Atlanta. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. How are you doing?
I'm great, Aaliyah. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for all that you do to keep us inspired.
Oh, of course. Thank you. That means a lot coming from somebody like you.
I'm just Dewey.
All right. So people obviously know you as a pastor and as an author, but you recently stepped into this new bag with the music, which I was surprised, but I'm so happy to hear about it. And it's not really new to me. I feel like it's not really new to you because pastors always have that tune in them, especially on the pulpit. But you do have a new song out right now called Your Presence is a Gift. Can you tell us a little bit about how that song came to be or what inspired you to release it?
Well, I've been musically inclined my whole life. Started playing guitar at 4, piano at 5. So I've been singing, doing music a long time, loving music. But when I start preaching at age 17, a lot of the older ministers in my community, they were like, man, you got to make a choice. You will never be respected as a preacher if you're going to be a choir director and a bass guitar player at the same time. So make a choice. You can't do that and do both. So I kind of shunned my musical sensibilities and just kind of relegated them to church. So I always wanted to do some music, had a lot of music in me, but I guess it just took bad advice. But I said, you know what, it's better late than never. And so hence the single. And I'm excited about the opportunity to produce some music. And then the song is my own testimony, because 5 years ago I went through a very traumatic experience. My mother-in-law, my godmother died 1 week, my mom died the next week. My best friend from college died 3 days after my mom died, 1 hour after we just spoken. My sister died 3 weeks after my mother died. And so within 28 days I had to do 4 eulogies, pick out 4 caskets, and it was the most traumatizing period of my life, really, to be honest. Almost a year I didn't know if I was going or coming, just going through the motions, very numb, very broken. And then it hit me, it's like God spoke to me and said, listen, man, you're stuck because you've been fixating over your mother's and your sister's absence, and you're not appreciating my presence. And so those lyrics, that song is really my testimony in a real sense, because I had to start appreciating the gift of God's presence, versus fixating on the absence of those who I love so dearly. So I just want people to know, no matter what you've lost, God's presence is still a gift.
Oh, wow. Dang, I feel like this is right on time. I lost my dad a little over a year ago, but I definitely find myself in those moments. And it's like in positions like yours and even like mine, we are people look to speak encouragement, but it's like sometimes we are, like you said, just in those moments of, I guess, being kind of stuck. So how do you navigate the presence of God? Like, how do you get to that point? Like, we know He's there, we know what the Word says, but how do you put what you actually like feel in your heart, or one piece of what you feel in your heart? Because we do feel God in our heart as well. But how do you kind of like balance the two?
Yeah, well, let me extend my condolences to you.
Thank you.
Yes, it's different, and people, I used to always preach, He's a mother for the motherless, He's a father for the fatherless. And it's very easy to preach that when you can pick up your phone and call yours.
Yeah.
For me, I think, to answer your question, one of the things I had to do was realize that nothing was wrong with me for grieving and mourning. I think sometimes in church, either we end up over spiritualizing things or over demonizing things. And people would, say those jargons, the typical ecclesial nomenclature, she's with the Lord, to be absent from the body, to be present with the Lord, she's in a better place, and your mom and your sister are together again, and your little brother and your grandmother, they're all in heaven, you can rejoice. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. You know, I'm not sad because I don't know where she is. I'm not sad because she's in heaven. I'm not sad because all my loved ones in heaven. I'm sad because they're not here. I'm having to navigate for the first time their absence. And don't try to shame me or throw scriptures at me and all these cliches and make me feel like it can inoculate me from my pain. Let me sit with this because it's traumatic. And I just think if you've never walked in somebody's shoes, you shouldn't criticize their steps. So I just have to be real to realize I'm not crazy. And the fact that I'm hurting doesn't mean I don't love God, doesn't mean I don't trust God. It means I'm a human being. I'm a human being who's gone through trauma. And if someone is in a car accident and it's a brutal accident and they have to go to the hospital for whiplash or broken bone, nobody's over them saying, just get well. He's a healer. You know, you got to go to chiropractors because that trauma can affect your body. Well, if trauma can affect your body, what do you think when something traumatizing hits your soul? And I think sometimes in the faith community, we don't do a good job in allowing people to be human. Just preach through it and go through it, you know? I mean, who puts a smile on the clown's face? You know, what happens, who tows the tow truck when the tow truck needs to be towed? Yeah. And so for me, it was sitting with my humanity. You know, James Baldwin says, while it is true that everything that is face can't be fixed, it's also true that nothing can be fixed until it's faced. So I went to therapy. You know, I talked to a therapist to kind of talk to my feelings. I think I had some anger issues even with God and some faith issues. And I had to realize it's okay for me to cry. And they're part of my emotions. And then realizing that I had to get closer to God. And so me being closer to God dealt with me being honest, you know, asking God, what's up, God? Asking questions. But my faith tradition said you should never do that. You should never, you know, just accept what happens. And then now a deeper sense of faith and theology has taught me that when you read the book of Psalms, half of the book of Psalms is nothing but questions. People who are having human experiences, but who could go to God and not see God as just this powerful force for the personal father. And so for me, being real, getting therapy, being around others who've been in similar situations. I had 4 traumatic deaths in less than a month to talk it through and not fake it till I make it, not put praise the Lord, hallelujah. This is where I am. This is what I'm feeling. I took some time off from the pulpit because I didn't handle it well initially. You know, I didn't handle it, and I just, you know, and I was in an unhealthy place, really emotionally, and now I realize that God got me through it. God is getting me through it. God gave me these emotions because I'm spirit, I'm body, and I'm soul. And when the soul is wounded, you got to take time and say, like the psalmist, my soul is disquieted in me. You know, I'm broken. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think now it's made me a more sensitive pastor because now I'm even more sensitive to people's pain. And I think nothing's wrong with that.
That's awesome. And you learned that the presence, or you not learned because you already knew this, but I guess solidified or were reintroduced to God's presence being a gift. And earlier you mentioned how you listened to the wrong people in releasing this song. So you said you kind of were toying with this idea about 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, you know, yes. You know, but I stopped doing music, you know, well, you know, thinking pursuing it professionally or in the industry. I would still do some things to sing in church, but things they told me when I was young, you know, you can't do both. But a few years ago, I just started all my gifts. I have a gift for media and film and music. I said, you know what? God gave me these gifts and to bring a message of hope to the world. And so I'm placed on earth to bring a message of hope. And God gave me these gifts and talents as mediums to which I could bring that message. And so now I realize I can use everything God gave me. But I didn't realize it took me a long, long time to realize that.
Yeah. And do you remember the moment where, I know it's probably hard to pinpoint, but like, do you remember that aha moment where you were like, okay, I'm going to put this song out now?
Well, you know, I think the aha moment really probably was in 2013. To be honest with you, I was having a conversation with Bishop Jakes. Well, not about the song, but just about this whole understanding of my gifts and being able to use everything. And he was just like, you know, why wasn't I doing more in the area of my giftings? And being, you know, because I do a lot of things for church. He's like, why aren't you utilizing everything God gave you? Not just preaching the pulpit or teaching, but all these gifts. And I think that's when I had to kind of unearth where did that principle come from. But the song, I think, to release this song in particular, I think with the loss that everybody's experienced over the past year or so, um, you know, people, I think sometimes in faith, we make God this cosmic bellhop, like this ontological Santa Claus, and we make faith about what we get from God. We get answered prayers, we get favor from God, increase. I call it cars and cribs and cash and clothes and companions and creature comforts. And so sometimes we base our relationship with God on simply what we receive from God, and so much about, we want God to enlarge our territory, and God will, and we want favor and increase, and God will grant us these things. But when the relationship with God is only one-sided, we want the things from God, but not God himself. And I think in this loss, when people struggle, the song, my prayer is that people will say, you know what? God, your presence, that's a gift. You're my reward. So if I pray and my mother doesn't live, even if you don't answer the prayer the way my human experience would have liked, I'm not lost because I didn't lose because you didn't answer my prayer. The reward is you, not answered prayer. The reward is the fact that you promised to never leave. And the reward is that you meet me daily with a brand new set of mercies. I'm grateful for my mother. I'm grateful for my sister. Grateful for, all the people who I lost. But the reward is not their presence. Their reward is down there present with God. My reward is the fact that God, your presence is it. And so even in loss and pain, God, I still can glorify you because you're my gift. If I get nothing for Christmas, if somebody's single and they have nobody to bring them something for Valentine's Day, or, God, you're my gift. And so I think it takes another level of maturity for us to stop basing our happiness and our joy on things and externalities. God is you. You're the gift. You're my reward.
That's good. That's really good. And so with this single too also comes another little reward, actually. Your new record label, Pebble Street Records.
Yes.
I guess, well, first I really want to know where's Pebble Street? Why is Pebble Street?
I was born and raised in Middle Georgia, a place called Macon, Georgia, which is about an hour south of Atlanta. Born and raised. And Pebble Street is in South Macon. And shout out to the South Side. And so for my first 10 years of my life, we spent them on Pebble Street. And my family, so the street was filled with my family. Almost, a great deal of my family lived on Pebble Street. I started taking piano lessons on Pebble Street. My dad put a guitar in my hand on Pebble Street. My father sang in a quartet. My grandfather was a quartet singer. My great uncles. So we would periodically have, neighborhood musicals. They put the guitars up and microphones up and go outside and barbecue. Everybody would come sing. So a lot of my whole musical formulation was developed on Pebble Street. And most of my relatives who were musically inclined have passed away. So for me, it was almost like an ode or a tribute to my roots and where I came from, and just Pebble Street is where it all started musically. So Pebble Street Records is a tribute to that.
That's really awesome. Now, are you looking for artists, or do you have artists lined up on your label?
Not yet. It's amazing that, I've been talking about doing a label for others for a long time. And I had several people come out of the ministry. Wanted me to do this years ago. One was my worship leader at the time. She's moved away since, but Miranda Curtis. Miranda was my worship leader for 4 years. And we talked back and forth about creating a record label for her to distribute her music. One of my directors of music is Kevin Bond, who produced music for Marvin Sapp and Kurt Franklin, Yolanda Adams, ironically. He produced her albums, and so he's one of our on staff. So we've been talking about putting it together, but just never took that step. So I want to have an opportunity for young people and old people who are gifted to be able to use their gifts. And we have a studio, and so I want to give others the opportunity to do it who may otherwise not have resources or somebody to stand behind them. So yes, we're looking for artists as well.
Awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. Before we go, I do want to know, like you said earlier, you've dealt with a lot a big load of grief and loss. And again, as you said, as have many others during this pandemic right now, or especially in the pandemic. But what's a message you share to the people who feel like they are losing hope right now?
That's a great question. What I try to tell the people is, there's a story I tell that a man went on a business trip, and he took his clothes out of his luggage, getting ready to iron his shirt for his meeting. And I want you to imagine this man is ironing the shirt, and all of a sudden there's a spiritual conversation that happens between the man and the shirt. And the shirt says to the man who has the hot iron on it, says, "Man, are you that iron is hot. Are you trying to burn me?" The man keeps ironing the shirt, said, "No, shirt, I'm not trying to burn you. I'm trying to make you better. You have some wrinkles on you, and I'm getting you ready to present you at your best. And the only way you can be presented at your best is if I put this iron on." And the shirt says, "Well, man, how do you know you're not going to burn me?" The man says, "Well, first of all, I bought you. I paid for you with my own money. I bought you out of the store because I loved you. And because I loved you and paid the price for you, I will never hurt you." And then thirdly, the shirt said back to the man, "Well, how do you know you're not going to burn me? The iron is hot." The man kept ironing the shirt, saying to the shirt, "Well, shirt, the reason why I know I'm not going to burn you is because before I start to iron you, I looked at your tag, I looked at your label, and I saw that you were a cotton shirt. So I preset the iron for a cotton temperature and not a wool or a linen temperature, because I won't put a wool or linen temperature on something that can only endure cotton heat." And so for me, I feel like that even in loss, that sometimes I felt like that shirt, and I know there are others who feel like the shirt. You're in the heat and you're trying to figure out why the heat is coming. But I want you to believe that even when the heat is applied, that the heat can make you better not to burn you. And I believe that those of us who believe in Jesus Christ should know that even when the heat comes, it's not going to burn us, because he bought us. He purchased us with his own blood and loves us. And we serve a God who loves us unconditionally. And thirdly, I believe that when we feel like we can't handle the load, I believe that we know we have a God who knows the ability, who knows what we can take, who knows if we're cotton, linen, silk, or wool. And I believe that even if we feel like the temperature is more than we can take, we have a God who will either relinquish some of the temperature or will get in there with us so we can endure it. So I just want to say to people, no matter what you're facing, you can overcome it. You have a brand new set of mercies. And I just believe that if you feel like you can't bear it, God will bear it with you. And I'm a testimony. I was broken emotionally, felt like I was all over the place emotionally, still having to preach the gospel. But God's love has drawn me closer. And I believe if God has done it for me, he'll do it for you. Just keep your faith, keep hope. And we come out of this, believe you're going to be better, wiser, and stronger. And believe that God has the temperature and you can handle it. So be encouraged and hold your head up.
That's an awesome message. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for this conversation. Your presence is a gift under your new record label, Pebble Street Records. It's out now. Can you let people know how to follow you and keep up with everything you have going on?
Thank you so much. You on Instagram and Twitter, I'm at Dewey Smith. That's EDEWEY Smith. At Dewey Smith. On Facebook, I am the official page of Pastor Dewey Smith. And on YouTube, I'm Dr. Dewey Smith. And if all else fails, you can go to edeweysmith.org. That's my website, and all the information is there. So thank you for the opportunity.